Hey there, and thanks for joining us for this episode. And as we get started, I wanted to remind you to make sure that you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you may be listening to podcast. This podcast is sponsored by ServeHQ.church. ServeHQ is a place where you can train your volunteers and leaders online through effective video courses. And really, that's just the beginning. You've probably dealt with that frustration of trying to coordinate meeting times for training, trying to organize materials for helping people learn how to, whatever it may be, do some type of volunteer work or procedure at your church. And it quite honestly can just be really frustrating. Well, ServeHQ simplifies all of that by, again, putting it all online, allowing people to watch it and learn how to do ministry at your church at their pace. You can learn more and start using ServeHQ at www.servehq.church. That's www.servehq.church. Thanks to ServeHQ for sponsoring this episode. Well, now I look forward to presenting the main content of today's episode as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope right here on the Church Advance podcast.
Brian, I can't really think of a bigger decision that a family could go through than to choose to adopt. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining me for a conversation today. I really want to know from your perspective, your family's adoption story, what it can teach all of us about priorities, sacrifice, planning, but ultimately, I think the word I want to land on is faith. So can you tell us a little bit about your family, your kids, and give us a brief overview of the story?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nate. I'm super excited to talk about this. I was asked by someone if you ever had a chance to write, what would you want to write about? My immediate answer is always adoption, because it's such a powerful thing, but it's also so potent right in our lives as basically the centerpiece of our family story. So I have 5 kids. 4 out of the 5 of my kids are adopted. My oldest child, Adriana, is adopted. Then my 3 youngest children, that would be Blake, Ashley, and Braxton, are also adopted. And then, of course, we have 1 biological child, Brent, who just turned 13 just last week, actually. And so the way God put our family together was adoption came our way in really 2 ways. First of all, adoption came our way initially through infertility, as is the case with many families. They want to have children. The natural thing for them to want is a marriage, and then you have children. It's supposed to be normal, and yet for the first 5 years of our relationship, it just didn't happen. And we went through all of the painful and embarrassing, tests and all the things with doctors. We never went through any infertility treatment. We went about as far into that as for doctors to tell us, you guys are young, you guys are healthy. There's no reason why you can't have children. Just keep trying. And yet, 60 months into this, month after month, no child. And so a family at our church in South Carolina had us over for dinner, and they had adopted 2 children, and they asked us if we had ever considered adoption. And of course, the answer was not really. I mean, from a theoretical perspective, yeah, I mean, everybody probably has considered adoption, but from an actual, yeah, let's do this, not really. I think we were just still holding out hope that we were going to have our own children, so to speak. But that put a seed in our mind. it was a few years later that, and I say a few years, just like the Bible says it came to pass, like 20, this happened 25 years later. We read it in one verse, and you don't realize how long 3 years is. 3 years of waiting is a long time. 3 years of praying. And in the summer of 2007, my wife was sitting at a swimming pool with another pastor's wife, and she said, "Hey, I don't know if you guys have ever thought about adoption, but we just had an email forwarded to us from my son, and there's a woman getting ready to have a child, and she has not selected an adopted family yet. Would you guys be interested?" And that was at the end of a 21-day fast that I had done, praying that God would give us a child based on Daniel chapter 10. I write about this in the book. And, I got done at the end of June. This was like first week of July. I just finished the fast like 7 days prior. And I thought to myself, well, there's no coincidence here. So anyways, make a long story short, we had no adoption agency. We had no profile. We had no money. And we sent an email to this woman, introduced ourselves like a makeshift Microsoft document, little profile. This is our little family, and we would love to have a baby and all this kind of thing. And make a long story short, man, that woman hit us back within hours and basically said, I'd like to meet you guys. This was 10 weeks, by the way, 10 weeks before Adriana was born. And we fly up there 8 weeks now. It took us 2 weeks to get all the planning. So about 8 weeks before Adriana was born, we met the birth mother, met her mom and dad. And by the time dinner was over, she looked at us and said, "I want you guys to have this baby." And we were just floored. I mean, we go from no child, no child, no child to we're going to have a baby in 8 weeks. We didn't have a house. We didn't have a lawyer. We had no money. We had no, we had nothing, man. And yet God threw this out there. And one of the things in the book that I talk about with my family is how God supernaturally and miraculously over and over and over again supplied the money, the home, the resources, the right lawyers, the social workers, everything that you can imagine that needs to happen in adoption happened for us in 8 weeks. And then God, of course, Adriana's born September 2007. And we were off and running with our first child. 5 years later, in 2012, my wife gets pregnant. And that's a whole deal. I mean, we've been trying now for 10 years, right? 10 years married, and she gets pregnant once. And now we've been married almost 23 years, or now it's been 23 years. And one time in 23 years, my wife's been pregnant, and that's Brent. And then, so that was the first story has to do with infertility. Then we moved to Florida after my time at West Coast Baptist College. We come here and, we got 2 kids. We're living the American dream, right? You got 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl. It's no more perfect than that. And 2019 comes around. This is 3 years after I moved here to Jacksonville. And the second story is just about Christians do what's right. And when Christians have opportunity to do good, they do good to others. Just like James says, just like First John says. And so we were in the worst season of our life, man. We had a church split. We had a really ugly time trying to get this church up and going. And I had taken a 20% pay cut just to try to survive. We were just battered coming out of the summer of 2019. And there was a woman who reached out to me and Angie and said, "Look, my granddaughter is getting ready to lose her kids to Department of Child and Family Services. Would you guys consider?" Well, first she said, "Do you guys know of anybody who would consider taking the kids for 8 weeks in what they call an emergency placement?" So emergency placement is instead of a kid going into foster care, someone's willing to take a kid like have an abusive or neglective situation and just provide, safe housing for them for 8 weeks while they try to sort this thing out. Well, we were like, I basically just said, well, we would do that. Why not? These kids need help because that's what we do, right? that's what Christians do. Christians, if it's in the power of their hand to do something, we try to do what we can to whom we can. So anyways, God dropped Blake and Ashley in our lap. That wasn't their name when we got them. And man, 8 weeks turned into forever. They came to our home. It was just an amazing situation. They were abused and neglected, and God just knit our hearts so quickly. The 8 weeks was coming up, and we were about to tell the DCF people that we just didn't know how much longer we could do this. There were some attachments. The kids were calling us mom and dad. It was getting, sticky, and we had made up our mind that we were going to tell the woman that day that if they'd really need to find something else, because this was getting hard, because at that time we didn't know what the end game would be. But anyway, she showed up that day, and before we even could get a word out, she said, "Hey, I got something you guys might want to know. This birth mother is ready to terminate her parental rights right now. If you guys will adopt the kids, if you'll keep them, she's going to give the kids to you." And I mean, just like that, Blake and Ashley turned from an 8-week emergency placement to a permanent family. And now this is the funny part. So this is 2019 September. We go into COVID, and we're getting the final adoption meeting, which was going to be over Zoom. And there was one document that the woman needed to sign. And so I called her. I said, "Hey, can I stop by your place? I need you to sign this piece of paper. We're going to court next week." And so me and Angie go over to her house, knock on the door. She answers the door, and she is 7 months pregnant, man. And she swings the door open, and I'm like, "What?" And she just looks at us like, "I didn't know what to say. I'm just embarrassed, but I was just kind of hoping that you guys would just take the baby. Would you?" And we're just like, "What?" So make a long story short, that baby is Braxton, and Braxton is now 5. And basically, we closed the adoption on May 25th, I think it was, or 27th, 2020. At the same time, we announced to the world that we were going to have a 5th child. And basically, we received 3 kids in 9 months between September 2019 and July of 2020. And just for a little bonus, Braxton was born on our 18th wedding anniversary. So, yeah, man. And literally, God, I'm telling you, man, he has just defined our family life through adoption. And so that's, I mean, as high end of an overview as I can give you of how God uniquely put our family together. It's an awesome story.
That's incredible. So many thoughts, so many questions are pinging in my mind. But the adding 3 kids in 9 months. So we've got 3 kids. My brother Josh, he has 2, and every now and then, when we watch them, my wife and I will joke, we're like, "Can you imagine if we had 5?" Because the way the ages line up, it kind of fits. Like, you got 5 kids kind of spaced out, and we're like, "Yeah, no, I can't imagine." So going from 2 to 5 in that span of time, I mean, that is crazy. I got to meet your kids. I had met Adriana before, but all your younger ones, we were out there a few months ago, and I had my son Judah, and Judah and Blake became buddies real quick, and they're just
100%, man, 100%.
And it's an amazing story. And back to your story about Adriana and how that all worked out. I mean, talking to friends who have gone through the adoption process, I mean, that is not normal that it just boom falls into place. I mean, for so many couples that want to adopt, it is a long and painful process, especially if you're going through the foster to adopt system. So it's just amazing how God brought all those circumstances around. Because I'm sitting in this lane of finances, but I always want to intersect finances in with faith and with how we live out our values when it comes to finances. My question for you is this. All right. So when it came to adoption and the financial aspect of what that was going to entail for you, where did the financial planning end and where did faith step in this process?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I can intersect the two things pretty well. First of all, Adriana was so sudden and so bizarre. And the mountain in front of us was here's what it was going to be. At the end of the day, it was going to be about $30,000. Okay. In 2007, I didn't make $30,000. This is whatever 20 years ago. And I was an evangelist and we couldn't get two nickels together in our pocket. I mean, we just had nothing. So here was my attitude about the whole thing going into that. It was sudden. It was dropped on our lap. And somebody told me years ago that if God orders something, God will pay for it. And I just had to go in. It was almost like, God, I'm just so vulnerable here but I didn't seek this. I wasn't looking for this. You dropped this right in my lap. And if this is really what you want, you are absolutely going to have to pay for this. So at that point, it just becomes a 100%. You're just so vulnerable and God's got to do it. And I still believe that. I know you do too. We want to plan. We want to do the best we can, but there are times where there cannot be a plan because if God just so drops them, that doesn't mean you go out and say, I'm just going to trust God to drop a $75,000 SUV in my lap. I only make $30,000, but I think God's going to make a way. I think that's foolish, right? God didn't drop that in your lap. God dropped enough sense in your mind to tell you that you shouldn't make that kind of purchase. But that's different than God handing you the keys to a car and saying, somebody walks up to you and gives you a $75,000 SUV. You go, praise God, thank you. Yeah, I'll make a way for, the insurance and the fuel and those sorts of things. But man, when you're 8 weeks out from a birth and you're facing $30,000, the only thing that you can do, at least at that time for me, because I didn't have the money, we were so new, was just say, God, you've got to do this. And I believe it's chapter 3 of my book, details the miracles. I'm telling you, Nate, time after time after time after time again, huge gifts. I mean, Red Seas parting, God absolutely provided every penny of it. Every penny of it was completely paid for, and most of it was from an anonymous source. To the flip side, what I would tell people is this. There's two ways to do adoption. There's the traditional, what you're describing, which is basically go through an adoption agency, try to make a match. You're paying for matchmaking services. You're looking at $30,000 plus dollars. If it's international, it could be a lot more. There's also word of mouth, what we call word of mouth private adoption, which is significantly cheaper. You end up paying lawyer fees is what it basically boils down to. And that can be between the $5,000 and $10,000 range in the right scenario. What could a person do right now? Let's say somebody's out there and they are like, I really want to adopt. I want a baby. We don't have a baby. What can we do? Here's what I would tell you to do. Number one, I would tell you to get a home study. Get a home study. Depends on where you live. I'm guessing somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000. Get a home study, and home studies are good for a year. That's called basically positioning yourself. Because let's say somebody stopped by your house today, Nate, dropped the baby off on your front doorstep. Well, you're going to be taking that baby to a fire department. Okay, you're not in a position to keep the baby, although your family's great and although that you're just not legally ready to take a child. A legal home study is the way to ensure that you are able. You don't have to have an adoption agency. All you got to do is have a mother who wants you to take their baby. And the way that you can be legally in a position to do that is to get a home study. So I would advise anybody to reach out. The second thing I would advise you to do is to start saving some. It could be anything. Man, for crying out loud, we'll go. Nate, people won't think twice about going out and financing a $50,000 car. And I'm not here to debate whether that's smart or not smart. I'm just saying people do it without even thinking, right? I mean, how many people out there they're going to go drop $800 a month on a car? Well, why don't you drop $800 a month on a kid? You know, and so maybe I could put some money away. Maybe I could reduce my expenses. If I really believe God wants me to do it, I might want to start positioning myself financially to do it. Because on top of the adoption expense, you've got just life. I mean, I just read something. I don't know if it was you. I can't remember if it was you that put this out, but man, they're saying in the state of Florida to have a family of 4, you need $98,000. $98,000 to live. Well, my goodness, I got a family of 5. I mean, my number's way up there. I don't know what it is. But
Yeah.
so you need to make sure, if you, as best you can, if you're trying to plan for an adoption, I think that's the difference here. Are you planning for an adoption, or are you just like, if God drops it, you're ready to roll by faith? I think both things can be true. And somewhere in the middle is probably where all your listeners are going to find themselves in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is, for us, we're just so inundated because of social media, because of all the information that's at our fingertips. There are just so many needs, so many worthy causes, whether it's homelessness or addiction or trafficking or counseling. I mean, there's so many great avenues that we can be involved. But I mean, it's hard to make an argument that there's anything more impactful and more worthwhile than adoption. And we're all limited by our own individual resources. As much as it pains our heart to see all of the needs out there, we can only allocate our time and our attention and our money towards so much. So I really appreciate that practical advice on, hey, how to prepare yourself for some of these different avenues for adoption. And I'm sure
one more thing. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just thinking of one more thing.
I'm sure there's people who are listening to this who are going to get your book, who the seed's already in their minds of, hey, maybe we would want to adopt someday. So all of these things are, I think, helpful to kind of get the runway, into that process.
Man, I pray it will. A lot of times when I go out and preach in places, and of course my story leaks into sermons all over the place, but I meet these people all the time, and I've had several conversations lead to people actually adopting. I would say this: if it does that, great. But if it doesn't do that, then I would highly recommend trying to engage your pastor in your church in some sort of formal connection with maybe a nonprofit organization, or maybe of a family in your church that is seeking to adopt. Consider financially helping them in some way as best you can. Yeah, make a way for true religion to find its way into your budget. And Nate, I don't know what happened, man. I don't know what happened along the way where churches and pastors and people it's just like we forgot this is in the Bible, and it's not like it's not fine print. It's headline stuff. I mean, vulnerable, poor, needy, orphans, widows, like this expression of our faith. It's got to be there, and I don't think adoption's even an option at some level. So I would advise people to get on board one way or the other. Even if you're not going to do it, get on board with helping enable other people, because there's people like me that probably want to do it, but they're staring at a financial mountain like there's just no way. What about church scholarships? What about churches coming together and saying, man, we're going to together foot this bill? I've heard, I don't know if this is statistically true, that if even just Southern Baptist Church got involved in I think it was 2 kids per church, the burden relief that it would come off of the system would be so enormous. Yeah. And I think if churches were doing what they were supposed to do, we wouldn't even need Department of Child and Family Services. Maybe for the safety issues. I'm talking about the practical,
Sure.
taking care of kids, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Two questions. Little 1A, 1B. 1A, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode, I saw the cover of your book. That is an amazing picture. That's like, you're looking like an action movie star on that picture there, Brian. I wanted to know the story behind that picture.
Yeah. So let me give a photo cred shout out to Aaron Chan. Aaron Chan took that picture. Remember a few minutes ago I talked about the day we closed the adoption was May, I think 27th, 2020. So we went out to the beach for a family photo shoot that day. And you can see in the background, you can see these poles. That's out at Hannah Park here in Jacksonville. And so we would take these formal pictures. We announced Braxton's, soon coming adoption. We were leaving the beach, and we were walking up this platform, like a beach ramp, access ramp, basically. And I was probably ticked off at a kid or something. Somebody probably, you could tell I was like looking off to the side. I'm probably rebuking a child, or there's probably something like that going on. But Aaron just caught this candid shot.
Yeah.
And the minute I saw it, I went, oh my goodness, man, that is adoption in a photo. Here's a little girl. She's in the father's arms. She's protected. No enemy, no evil is going to harm her. And you see this like dad ferociously. And as soon as I saw it is when I first had the book idea. Of course, the title of the book is Rescued. And I just think the picture just gave me that seed thought and became the idea for the title of the book, and then how I wove biblical stories into the book. It all became about that word rescued. So that's where the picture came from.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. So I know many listening to this have you're friends with Brian on Facebook, on social media, and you've seen it. But if not, go ahead and check it out. The other question was, obviously adoption is God's going to put it on the heart of some. There's going to be opportunities. Not everybody's going to have the chance to adopt, but this is all about how do we align our use of money with what is important. And so through this journey of adopting 4 kids, how has that changed? How has God changed your and Angie's view of your personal finances?
Oh man, listen, there's so many ways. In fact, we're fleshing it out fresh right now in our life. I mean, we just took a huge run through our personal budget. We made some huge cuts because I've got one in college now. I've got one getting ready to drive. I mean, in a couple of years, I've got all this homeschooling stuff we've done. And I'm talking about, like, I drive a 2011 Ford Explorer truck that my dad gave me. I didn't even buy. Okay. I mean, my wife's vehicle is a 2014 Chrysler minivan that's probably on its last leg. So you say, are you like pulling the poverty guy? No, I'm talking about choices. I'm talking about things that mattered to us more than having a new car. I could go out there and get a Tesla if I wanted to. I could go out there and get whatever I wanted. But I decided I've got to invest in adoption. I've got to invest in having children. If I've got these children, there's certain things I just can't do. There's certain things that I refuse to do. And I think it's just as simple, right? People like for instance, let's say if there's somebody out there talking about even something as simple and as basic to us as tithing. Well, if you're not a tither and you start thinking about the idea of tithing, well, what does that mean? That means for you, if you've been living a certain way, there's some things you need to look at and say, if we're going to do this, we can't do A, B, C, and D. And it may mean that some of the comfortable American dreamish things that we think about become not as important to us if we're going to do something for the greater good. And so, and by the way, I'm not, don't misunderstand me. I'm not being real negative here. I don't care. I don't care about cars. I don't care about fancy stuff. I care more personally about people's lives being changed. And I would hope that the Christian audience, surely that's where we should all be with how we approach this.
Absolutely. This past Sunday, my brother Josh started a new series from the Book of Ruth. And of course, Ruth, it's an amazing story of redemption, God taking circumstances that people wouldn't have chosen for themselves and then taking people's mistakes and then redeeming it into something beautiful, something new. And as Josh was making that point, I immediately thought about your story. Because that's exactly what it is. It's God taking circumstances that you wouldn't have chosen for yourself, a struggle to have your own biological children, and then you couple that with some really bad mistakes and shortfallings of other people that led to these kids needing to be adopted. And then from that, God creates something beautiful and something new and ultimately something more precious than money could ever buy. And I think that's the amazing thing about when we really get to the heart of the purpose, the role of money in our lives, it allows us to see things that are, to your point, much more worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Hey,
one little, I know Josh is going to get to this, but one interesting thing about Ruth that ties in here is when Ruth goes out to glean in chapter 2, there was a law in Leviticus and Deuteronomy that told the wealthy people to, number one, not cut the corners of their fields. And number two, if they dropped, wheat off of their wagons, to not pick it up, because they would use that intentionally for the less fortunate. That's how Ruth and Boaz even met. So, we tend as Americans, I think, to cut all of our corners, and we leave no space for helping people. And man, I don't want to be in a situation where I couldn't help somebody because I'm so focused on myself that every square inch of my field is being used on myself. And I don't have the space to see somebody's. I mean, what a greater opportunity for the gospel. 3 of my adopted kids have already been saved, and Braxton's asking questions. I mean, those kids, in the true sense of the word, their lives were forever changed. And Nate, I believe this: if I didn't do anything else with my life, except for get these kids, get them to Jesus, and raise them for God, I mean, I think that it was worth, the life God gave me. So it's a pretty awesome experience.
I love that. I love that. Well, the book is Rescued. I know I'll be getting a copy. It's coming out late September, right?
Yes, sir. You can go to briansams.com/rescue. That allows you to pre-order the print copy. You can also go to Amazon Kindle right now and pre-order the Amazon version, the Kindle version, I should say. And then, of course, September 22nd is the actual release. That's when the book will go live on Amazon. But yeah, if I'm in your area or if anybody would like to pre-order, those books will be actually mailed right to you on September 22nd. And I can't wait to get it out, man. So it's an awesome thing. And I'm really blessed to, first of all, have the story, but then God gave me the ability to communicate the story. And I appreciate the encouragement of my friends. Your dad, Kurt, wrote the foreword to the book, which was just an amazing foreword. I'm so thankful for that. And I'm really blessed to have good friends and people around that have encouraged my writing and have encouraged others to pick up the book. And again, I just really hope it'll encourage people to take the step of faith, but also it's not just about adoption. Hey, there's one other side of it. It's just like, maybe you need the miraculous. Maybe you're praying for something. Maybe you need some encouragement. I really just think the book has a lot to say on all of those subjects. And so thanks for having me, and thanks for encouraging people to pick up the book.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation. Love it. It's an amazing story, and I know it'll be an amazing book, and it'll help so many. So thanks again, Brian, and thanks everybody for listening and watching.
God bless.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode. And I do want to remind you to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you may listen to podcasts. While you're there, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and then share the podcast with other pastors and leaders that you believe this content could be a help to. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we'd really appreciate it if you'd like this video, and then also share a comment with any thoughts, feedback, or questions you may have. We may just be able to answer those in a future episode. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches. And we'll see you next time right here on the Church Advance podcast.